I'm Stefan, and just to quickly introduce myself, I'm a front-end developer from Berlin. I'm an occasional teacher, so I'm involved with several meetups in Berlin, and sometimes I teach Node and CSS. And my main interest these days is into open source, web performance, and accessibility. And I work for a company that is called Contentful. So we're basically a content management solution in the cloud. So when you don't want to work with a CMS that you have to host and you have to deal with, and you may have to write PHP and stuff, you can give this a try out. You get an API for it, an API for you to use, and editors get a CMS, which you can give them, and then you're ready to go, and you can play with fancy, cool stuff. And when I started my career, so I'm in the field for 7 years now, I was in one of these teams. Conversion rate optimization, right? Task force. 3-month A/B testing, moving stuff around, tweaking wording, colors. And I was working in the e-commerce sector, and the usual conversion rate in e-commerce is 2 to 3% for a purchase, right? Depending on your business then, when you have a lot of users, an improvement of 0.1% means a gazillion more money for your business. So everybody's spending a lot of effort in there. And especially e-commerce companies spend a lot of time on tweaking these little things that may or may not matter. And when I was involved in these processes, it always felt to me like that. So what leads to a decision of a conversion? Is it the button color? Is it the correct timing? It's the mood of the person, or maybe it's the weather. In e-commerce, this is really true, that a lot of things depend on the weather. And don't get me wrong here, I'm making a little bit fun of A/B testing and all that stuff. It's important to optimize, because this way we can understand our users. But maybe there's more to consider. And additionally to your actual product, people care about more than button color and text. So people care about also web performance, and inclusive design, and accessibility. And these are 3 topics that are close to my heart, so let's talk about these. So web performance first. I have to admit, I live in a bubble, and I live in a really healthy bubble. So I'm from Germany, Berlin, and I'm here with a recent phone, recent MacBook Pro, 5 GB EU-wide fast data plan, right? But I'm not the baseline, not at all. So when we're building products, these are usually not built for one country anymore, right? Maybe we're building the next Tinder, and our customers will come from wherever. And then web performance matters. So we have to ask ourselves, all right, where will our next customer come from? Because not every customer is as healthy with his equipment as I am. So what are the top 10 countries with the highest number of internet users? Anyone? I see. It's China, with 700 million people, followed by India, the USA, Brazil, Indonesia, Japan, Russia. And the interesting fact here is that 90% of the people coming from China are using their mobile device. Ooh, that's interesting. And when we look at the cost for mobile data usage, it actually varies a lot. So when we see these countries here, in Finland, people have unlimited data for 35 euros. Compared to the United States, it's 2 GB for 35 euros. Think of that. This means that people pay different amounts of money for the same access of data. Tim Kedlick built a product around that, and that is called What Does My Site Cost? So you can head over there, put in a URL, and you will see what does this cost in a given country according to the mobile phone contracts that are available in there. And it's also comparing, giving you numbers on equality in purchasing power, and then the last column, which is down there then, it compares how much it costs in percentage to the daily income that a person makes in a given money. So you can say this website cost me 1% of my daily income. This is crazy good numbers. So let's take Germany as an example. I've got this blue mobile provider, right, which offers prepaid data plans, 1 GB for 10 euros. This means, and I'm ignoring caching headers here, this means that I can 400 times visit a website with 2.5 meg. This means that one visit cost me 2 cents. Think of that when you're browsing the internet. And according to HTTP Archive, 65% of the traffic in the internet are images. So I just want to do the baseline here, and the first thing that we should do to save some money for our users is choosing the right image, right? And this sounds really straightforward, but it is not always. So there are GIFs, JPEGs, PNGs, and SVGs. First question, is it a vector graphic? Please, please go for an SVG. SVG support is really good these days. Then it gets a little bit trickier. Do you need animation? Go for GIF, but there are pitfalls, and we will talk about these later. Do you need to preserve fine details or high resolution or transparency? Go for PNG. And then there are also 2 different modes of PNG, so how many colors do you need? And otherwise, go for a JPEG. So let's have a look at this image here. And this will come back over and over again during this talk. This image has a dimension of 2,000 pixels, so let's have a look what it costs, actually, in the 10 euro data plan that I just bought because I came to Germany. As a GIF, it's 1 cent. Sweet. Do you want to pay 1 cent for it? PNG 8, almost 1 cent. Then we've got PNG 24. All right, we're leveling up here. It's getting more expensive. And then we've got JPEG. Sweet. That looks good. I won't feel that on my bank account, probably. And then there are also exotic image formats, right? So there's JPEG XR, WebP, JPEG 2000, FLIF, BPG, and they're all, except for WebP, they are not really entering the web industry, in my opinion. And this is typical cross-browser land, right? So JPEG XR is supported in the Microsoft universe, WebP is in the Google universe, and JPEG 2000 is Safari in the Apple universe. So let's just quickly look at the WebP example here. Nice. Even less. Maybe we should use that, maybe. And the cool thing about that is responsive images are now there, right? We can use the picture element to progressively enhance the browsers that support the current format. So Chrome will pick the WebP image here, and the others will pick the format they understand. If not, they will go for the fallback, which is the image element in there. But maybe we don't have to go the exotic route here, and maybe JPEG is good enough. So there are also different JPEG encoders here. So there's libJPEG, which is the default encoder, there's modsJPEG, and there's Gützli, which was recently released. And you can all use all these just using ImageOptim. That's an NPM package, put it in your build process, you're done. The cost of that is nothing. It takes you 2 minutes to set it up, and you're saving your users money. So let's check the comparisons here. So you've got libJPEG, that was the baseline. Okay, 400K. You've got Gützli in default settings. Yeah, okay. But you've got modsJPEG, which cuts it in half again, right? And now let's imagine you're shipping an image site. An e-commerce shop, for example, ships a lot of images. You can save money there for your customers. If you're interested in that, Una Kravitz gave an excellent talk about this, which was called The Joy of Optimizing. And yeah, just start doing that. And for me, this feels like web development 101. People working in the industry usually discovered that, and they're saving money. And then it happens that I'm reading articles on one of the biggest publishers I use these days. Medium, right? Cool. And I'm looking at this programming article, which was by a fairly good-known tech company, by a fairly good-known developer, and it shipped 21 megabytes for an article about code. 1,000 words and a little bit of code. And on mobile, they shipped 30. I didn't debug what was going on there, but they're shipping even more. I'm not sure if I want to pay 30 cents for an article that I'm not sure if I like it. So I had a look under the hood, and what they were shipping were 4 PNGs, so it was the Seattle image, and 3 images of code, right? Yeah, I'm not sure. And none of these were responsive. And we have responsive images. We can just use the source set attribute and the sizes attribute, and we can save bytes on the wire. but it looks like people are not doing that, and I don't understand why. And this is cross-browser supported. And maybe you've got a service running, which makes it even easier. There are a lot of image services out there where you only have to append the query parameter and you're set. Sweet. So let's do that. So when I tweak all the images that were in this 21 megabyte heavy article, for the PNGs, I come down with 170K. That's a good achievement. But you may ask yourself, okay, but where's the rest? I mean, there were 20 megabyte, right? Well, there was this. This was on the mobile version. It's a 28 megabyte GIF about code. Yeah, I'm not sure how I feel about that. If you're caring about these things, for example, like Twitter's shipping across the whole world, right? And in their recently released progressive web app, they're shipping a safe data mode. I mean, how cool is that? They're really shaping the web, and they're saving. If you want to have an image, you have to tap it. Otherwise, you get 20 kilobytes less. And this is because they care about us. This is really, really cool. But what about motion, right? We saw the GIF. Videos only make 7% according to HTTP archive of the internet traffic. But if video comes in, the average size is 500K. So I want to share something with you. This is my personal website, and I tend to write posts about stuff I learn because, yeah, I want to keep track of it. And I started with GIFs, right? Because this is what the internet is about, GIFs. And then at some point, there are some videos in between. At some point, I switched it to MPEG-4. And I cut 10 megabytes just for switching the format. And the people on the phone visiting my website may thank me or not. And it's not only about the right format, again, it's also about compression. So beforehand, I was always looking how to compress MPEG-4s, but actually there's a snippet for that which you can easily put in your dot files. And it's just one command. Put it in there, compress video, and you're good to go. And maybe MPEG is not the correct format. Maybe there's something else. There's also WebM, which is built for the web, which has even better compression. And then you can go with a video element, and you're saving a lot of bytes on the wire. And your customers may thank you then. So when we compare the compressions, this video that you see there is 5 megabyte in MPEG. It's 1 megabyte after I compressed it, and then it's 500K in WebM. That's really sweet. So I'm also doing the same thing for my videos. Just one command, and I'm good to go. And then just put it into my dot files. One command. Super good. But the thing with video is that it is also really expensive, right? So I also want to quickly say, let's just use it responsibly. And years ago, I was happy, and I recorded this little thing here, which comes from web page test, which is usually used for web performance monitoring. So what you see here is 2 newspapers. So New York Times and The Guardian. And I don't want to know what Audi paid for that, what is going on there, but they're shipping a video as an ad, right? And when you now go vice versa, I don't know what all the people, let's assume they're all on the prepaid contract, paid for this ad. This is not responsible use of video. So just keep that in mind. So the last missing piece about data on the wire is then, what about text? So basic front-end 101, we're minifying, we're compressing, right? Please, let's gzip everything, because we can save a lot of stuff there. But there are also new compression algorithms, right? So there's also Brotli, which is not that cutting edge anymore, and it has a few gotchas. You have to be HTTPS to use it. And the encoding is really slow, but it compresses way better than gzip. So what you can do is you can configure Nginx that way that compression doesn't happen on the fly anymore, but rather statically. So you can compress all the files up front, and you can make a lot of savings over there. Facebook is shipping Brotli for all the text assets they have, because they want to save bytes on the wire. So this is the performance 101 in front-end land, and web performance is a topic on its own, right? So fonts are always a good topic. HTTP2 is now finally there. We've got progressive web apps, caching, the Rail model by Google, Then we've got time to interactive, speed index, preload, 60 FPS, first render. We could talk hours about that, but I decided to make the topic bigger. So if you're interested in more stuff, shameless plug, I'm running an online resource about all the stuff front-end related. So you find articles, tools, everything that I think is valuable, you will find over there, and it's searchable. So when you don't care about web performance, what you usually do is you lock people out. You decrease your conversions for people that live in less populated areas. When I'm visiting my parents with my current mobile contract, no way. That's not working at all. You're locking people out that are not on an expensive data plan. You're maybe locking people out that are on conference Wi-Fi. Today, it's actually really good. I have to say that. And you're locking out people that are visiting a foreign country. When I'm visiting, for example, Australia, I have to pay a few euros for 6 megabytes. Do I want to buy an extra SIM card just because this website just blew up my limit? I'm not sure about that. And information shouldn't be a privilege, right? We should make it as cheap as possible. And I consider myself to be a web professional, so I want to make it affordable and accessible. If this is not enough for you, there are also these convincing stats, right? Pinterest increased 15% SEO and 15% conversion rate. BBC loses 10% for every second. And the Trainline, which is a train ticket discounter in the UK, they measured that and they monitored that, and they're officially saying they're making 11 million more due to performance improvements. If you need the study to convince someone, you can go to WPO Stats. Tim Cudlek and Tammy Everett are collecting exactly this kind of information, and usually you can convince someone with that. But let's step back a little bit from the technical web performance, and let's think a bit more about people. In America, there are 57 million people with disabilities. The overall population of America is 321 million. This means when we aggregate this up to the whole world, we've got 1.3 billion people with disabilities worldwide. And let me tell you something about these people. 70% of these people will drop when they think your site is hard to use. They will buy the stuff they need somewhere else because they can use it there, and it's more comfortable for them because the website is more accessible. For the UK, this means these people with a disability will spend 16 billion pounds per year. And now let's think of that. 70% of that may go away because we in the front end, we didn't do a good job. Maybe this is part of the conversion rate, maybe. Which brings me to the next topic, inclusive design. And inclusive design means that this is a design methodology that enables and draws on the full range of the human diversity. But this is not only about human diversity, it's the moment where you're in. We're all disabled in some situations, let's say. We will see that in a second. And let me tell you a story. I was at an event in London 4 weeks ago or 5 weeks ago, and I got this kind of device, right? I've got the same one here. And it has a mute button and an LED, and the LED was red and green, right? So the sound engineer came to me and told me, well, you can mute this thing, and maybe you can see it, but I can't. Classic, right? And when you start looking around these things, you will find them over and over again, just because we are not thinking the products through we're building. Every 12th man is affected by a kind of color blindness. And it's 1 woman out of 200. So let's have a look at the image here. So we've got this image, right? Really colorful. This might look like that for a person, or like that, or like that. Do you consider color in your products? Maybe you want to reconsider these. So when we are looking, for example, you're a software as a service provider and you're doing something with graphing, right? Looks good to me, but what happens now? That's already harder, and it gets even worse. Checking for colors is not that hard, and information shouldn't be only, how's the LED wall? And checking for that is really not that hard. And I, as a front-end developer, when I'm developing stuff, I'm just doing that, right? Install a Chrome extension and check for it. Don't rely on color only. And I started a new job 8 months ago, and my boss at the time, or still my boss, he told me, Stefan, dude, before you start here, you have to bring your website in order, right? I was like, okay, I can do that. So I got to a friend who was a designer, and this is what he came up with, right? So he got me a design. I was like, yeah, cool, looks good to me. I mean, I'm a developer. I don't care that much, to be honest. But I'm using this also to blog some stuff, and I was writing an article about accessibility. What happens when you write an article about accessibility? People famous in accessibility will scream at you that your blog is inaccessible. And Hayden Pickering, in this case, he was right. The design initially had several issues, and I didn't take care of it. So what you see here is all these areas are hard to read for people that are not as sighted as I am. But these areas are also hard to read when I'm on my phone and I'm outside. This is not really hard to check for. And this is an easy thing because we also can easily automate that. So maybe we want to put tools in our CI process. So what you see here is the X project, and you can run it against any URL, and it will tell you what accessibility issues you have. This goes from markup to contrast. Checking for contrast is really not that hard. And when it's in your CI, it should be the same check as the performance check you should maybe do. So there are several products out there, and you can check which is the best fit for you. And there's also a link for a comparison of all the different accessibility tools out there. But maybe this is a little bit too late, right? Because then your stuff is already in production. So there's also accessibility tools for Chrome. That is not that hard. So what you see there is that the dev tools then will show you the contrast ratio, and they will give you a big exclamation mark when it's too low. But maybe this is also too late, because the designer should have maybe thought of that. So what if we could educate there also a little bit? So Sketch is the tool right now, at least for the designers I work with, and we can, it's down below, you can check the contrast ratio there too. And when the designers care about that, then it goes up, and we're building better products that are ready to use when I'm sitting in the sun with my mobile phone. So at the end, I fixed all these issues, and I have to admit that my website is not as pretty as it was in the initial design. But this is okay for me, because now more people can read my articles, because, well, this is the whole purpose of me writing an article, right? And people usually don't drop because of the lack of prettiness. They drop because it's hard to read or unusable. Another story from the same event in London. So the speaker before me, she wanted to show some videos, and we wanted to live stream the videos. And for technical reasons, it was not possible to have her voice and her computer on the speakers and in the live stream. This could be easily solvable with captions, right? And when I think of captions, I visited the Vue Source conference last year, and they had live captioning. And this is not only for deaf people. This is for me. For example, I've got troubles when I have to listen to a person that is from New Zealand. This accent is really hard for me to understand. A speaker from New Zealand and captioning for me may save a conference talk for me, because I can actually read and understand what is going on. And the Vue Source conference then later on, they also released the video with live captions. This is awesome. And this is not only for deaf people. This is for people maybe sitting in the public transport and they forgot their headphones. So you can watch a video without hearing it. This is purely inclusive. So when you not think of these kind of things, you're decreasing the conversion and you're locking people out that can turn on sound, that sit maybe in the sunlight, that maybe cannot pay full attention. I mean, what if the interaction elements are too small and you're on the go? Did you maybe hit already the wrong button when you're on the go on your phone? Well, I do constantly. This is all inclusive design. And when you're developing in a front end, let's maybe not do that. Yeah, the designer told me to do so. That's not the thing. We should all work together to build a successful product, right? Because this is why I at least go to work every day. And Microsoft released a thing that is called the Microsoft Design Toolkit, and it's all about education, collaboration, and being inclusive. So what you see here is that I am maybe temporarily disabled when I broke my right arm, right? When I have to touch my phone with the left hand. Maybe I'm sick, tired, or hungover. Then contrast ratio matters to me. Or I'm wearing sunglasses. All these things influence how I use a product in front of me. And at the end, it's a matter of the success of the products we build. So inclusive design is not just for good, it's for a good business and for good products. But let's come to the last part of this talk then. Accessibility, technical accessibility. WebAIM, which stands for Web Accessibility in Mind, and this is a non-profit organization that deals with accessibility, they did a study in 2011. And they ran one of the tools and checked for accessibility errors. And this excludes contrast errors. So it's just technical accessibility errors. And they did the same thing 6 years later. And what we see here is that, well, we're not doing such a good job. These errors are based on the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, which are basically a few documents out there that tell you what you need to do to build an accessible website. And what you see there is version 2.0, but there was also version 2.1 released recently. When talking about technical accessibility, the first and most important thing is semantic markup. It's just HTML, right? This is what it is treated very often. But I looked for errors, and it took me 1 minute, and I found that. So what we see here is a Google Map widget, right? You can tap around, you can press these buttons, and you can zoom in, you can zoom out. But there's no way to access the plus and minus buttons with a keyboard. So let's fix that. So here we see the markup for that. Typical div soup, right? No meaning in it. So what we could do is we could throw a tab index attribute with -1 on it. This makes it focusable by click, but not reachable by the keyboard. Maybe not a good choice here. We could put tab index 0 on it. So now it's clickable, focusable, and reachable by the keyboard. So good so far. But now assistive technology, like a screen reader, doesn't understand that it's a button, right? So nobody will click it with assistive technology. So let's make it a button. All right, we're almost there. That's good. But now a person with assistive technology wants to do one thing. The person may want to press enter now to click this thing. So let's throw a lot of JavaScript on it to make the click working. Or at the end, we could just care about accessible markup, right? It could just be a button. And we could drop all the stuff I just showed you. Because this is what semantic markup is about. And Chris Hyman, who is talking right now in the other room, he said, well, if you can use the web platform to solve issues, use it. And I see a lot of websites that are not following this practice. The web platform itself has support for more environments. Browser vendors can optimize for it. Fewer code is better code, right? I don't want to throw JavaScript on divs. And at the end, everybody benefits. Another big thing when talking about accessibility is focus handling. And great focus management is essential for a good product. And who uses the keyboard a lot when browsing the web? So let's have a look at a random news site I just found when doing the research for this talk. I'm starting with the focus in the search field. Do you see where the focus was? Well, and it's not the LED wall. It's a typical thing that is all over the web. It's these few lines of CSS. And these few lines of CSS that are breaking the experience for keyboard users. It's just that. And I was always talking to my colleagues and was saying, never touch the outline, right? Chrome has a blue outline. I know how it looks like. I know how to deal with it. But I recently changed my opinion to always think of the outline. And the reason for that is that I was reading an article, and it was an accessibility article, and A user said that the father of this user had to switch browsers because the outline in Firefox is just a tiny dotted line. The browser is messing it up, but we could still fix it. And let's look at these examples here. Do you see what is focused? But it gets harder over time. And the thing is that Chrome has a blue outline, and even the Google Chrome developer documentation, you don't see the outline. Why? Well, because the background has the same color as the outline. So let's just maybe think of the outline. And the reason why people disable the outline for so many things is this, right? There are links, there are input fields, and there's this button which has this blue thing when you click on it. This is what people hate. Visual people, that's why we put outline 0 on it. But there's a solution coming, and I'm really excited about that. In CSS level 4, there's the focus ring property. And with this, we can differentiate between focus that was triggered by a click or focus that was triggered by a keyword. So when we have this, there's no reason for disabling the outline anymore. And this is already usable with a polyfill. If you're interested in that, Rob Dodson from Google, who does a lot of accessibility stuff, has a perfect screencast about that. But focus handling. And the hardest thing when talking about focus is the modal, right? It's just display block and display none, no? You might have guessed so. So in the web accessibility community guidelines, it's described as follows. When you want to use a modal, it has to have its own tab sequence. This means that when you're in a modal, you should not be allowed to tab out of it again. Ooh, that gets interesting. It should close on escape, and when it opens, the focus should go to the first focus of element, and now the tricky part, when you close it again, it should go back where it was coming from. Ooh. This is already a lot of JavaScript stuff going on there, right? So let's have a look at an accessible modal.
Voiceover on Chrome, dialog tutorial, visited, demo, show dialog, button. Name, dialog, name, edit text. Please enter your full name. You are currently on a text field, close, button, footer 2 items, save, button, Stefan, insertion at end, close, but save, button, show dialog, button, main 4 item, name, Stefan, show dialog, button, main 4 item, voiceover off.
So what you just saw was that I could not tap out of it. It was reacting on escape, and it was moving the focus back to the button that initially opened it. There's a lot of stuff to consider. But you might ask yourself, well, it's not that hard to do this focus trap in the modal again, right? But actually it is. It is so hard that people started writing libraries about that. So here you see LIJS, which is written by Rodney Ram, to actually make all the other stuff that is not your modal disabled. You have to do 6 things. Setting a tab index 0 to all the needed elements. If you have SVGs somewhere hanging around, you have to set focusable false. You have to remove the audio and video attributes from the control attribute from audio and video. You have to override element focus because, yeah, well, maybe some JavaScript is hanging around. Add pointer events none, and set array disable true so that assistive technology understands that all this stuff is not accessible. That's a lot of stuff to think of. But there's a solution. And the solution is called inert. This is an attribute that was already in the spec, was removed, and is coming back now. This is doing exactly what the library does. It makes complete areas of the DOM inaccessible. So you cannot reach it with a mouse, or by clicking, or by tabbing. So this is the hard modal use case, right? But a modal is nothing without content, right? So let's talk about accessible content. And it's time for the beautiful Seattle image again. Let's look at Medium.
Voiceover on Chrome, how I learned to love JavaScript, window, link, image. Go to the profile of John Doe. Link, follow, button, engineer, drinking too much coffee, APR, 1, middle dot, 7, min read, heading level 1, how I learned to love JavaScript. /1, star H, 1, VH, 8, GB, 3, I, 7, GPH, 5, AG, 1, HMSQ.png, image. When Brendan I create /1, heading level 1, how I learned to love JavaScript. You are voiceover off.
So there are 2 issues here in Medium, right? The first thing is generated content is accessible by assistive technology. So what you heard in the middle was this middle dot This was purely representational, and it was hanging around in a pseudo-element after of this span. And famous examples, and I'm guilty of these myself for 100 times. A closing button with a multiplier x. Well, this will be read out like multiplier x, button. Screen reader users are used to that, but it's not a nice experience, right? Or what about the favorite button with this black star, which is then styled white, which will be button, black star, favorite. That's not what we're going to do, right? We can fix that by just removing it from the accessibility tree with an aria hidden. And this way we're saying this is purely representational. Just because it's in CSS doesn't mean it will not go to the accessibility tree. So maybe we wanted to do that. And then this image about Seattle, right? The article was about coding. I'm not sure if I want to see an image about Seattle there. So this image here was clearly purely representational. And because of the lack of the missing, alt tag, we were read out the file name. Really helpful. But this is just a decorative image, which maybe should go into the CSS anyways. But we can fix that by just putting an area landmark role on it, role presentation. This is how we should decorational images in HTML. So let's have a look at the fixed version.
Voiceover on Chrome. How I learned to love Java's link. John Doe. Follow. Engineer. APR. 1. 7. Min read. Heading level 1. When Brendan I created heading level 1. How I learned to love JavaScript. Voiceover off.
Sweet. That's really cool. But the alt attribute on an image is a topic on its own. And there are a lot of corner cases, and it's really hard to write a good alt text, actually. If you're interested in getting more stuff, you can check out this article. It describes all the gotchas you have to deal with when dealing with an alt attribute. And I already told you about the redesign of my private website, right? So let's look at an example here.
Voiceover on Chrome. Stefan Judis. Web development. Window. Link. Check out the project. Heading level. Perf tooling is a shared with link. Perf heading Forest is an NPM desktop client to deal with daily work. Check out the project. Check out the project. Check out the project. My latest projects on GitHub. Voiceover off.
How much value does check out the project have here? I mean, I see that this check out the project belongs to this headline. But a person navigating with assistive technology might just jump from link to link to link to link. It's the typical read more thing, or more to discover. These are useless when we want to quickly navigate with assistive technology. So let's have a look what I had first. So we had this first, right? Check out the project, useless. You always have to check the surroundings to get that. You can set an array label to that. This is now, gives more information what this is about. Or if you don't want to set a new value as an attribute, you can also connect it to the headlines. So you can reuse the headlines so that it's connected to the link. That's really cool. So let's have a look at the fixed
Voiceover.
version.
Forest is an NPM. Heading level 3. Forest is an NPM desktop client. Forest on GitHub. Performance tooling today on GitHub. Design mode Chrome extension on GitHub. Link. Voiceover off.
This is really cool, and it's really easy to achieve. If you're interested what it means to have an accessible name, Leonie Watson, who is an accessibility consultant, wrote an excellent article about that. But I showed you a few examples that were just inconvenient for screen reader users, right? Let's have a look at a breaker, which really influences your conversion. Accessible updates. So let's have a look at the product we built.
Voiceover on Chrome. Stefan Judis star. Window. Stefan Judis. Insertion at end of text. Name. Edit text has keyboard focus. You are pizza. A. Unselected. 1 characters. Publish changes. Button. You are currently on a button inside of web content. To click this button, press Control, Option, Space. To exit this web area, press Control, button. Voiceover off.
Did you hear that something happened? No. You saw the toaster coming in, but you didn't notice it because it was broken for assistive technology. This is now a software as a service for editors, right? I got it. But when you're an e-commerce shop and you're doing some Ajax add to cart, this is crucial. And this is the money that you lose because people go somewhere because they can hear when you add something to cart. So let's fix that. So initial code is that, and the solution to this problem is called area live regions. So you can just put a role status on it, and assistive technology will get notified or will notify you when something happens with that. And just for compatibility reason, you can put area live on it, which defines how aggressive you want to inform the users. So there are several levels. So it's role log, or role alert, which is like interrupt immediately. Let's say a message like, I will delete your account in 10 seconds. Well, maybe I want to hear it immediately, or just log in a chat message or something like that. And with something like that,
Voiceover on Chrome. Stefan Judis start. Window. Stefan Judis. Insertion at end of text. Name. Edit text has keyboard focus. Pizza. A. 6 characters. Publish changes. Button. Stefan Judis published successfully.
that is cool. Personally, as a front-end developer, I like that stuff, because it's kind of geeking out on accessibility. But this is just the base and the base for Area stuff. When you want to get really crazy, you can do a lot of things with Area. And Hayden Pickering, who got me the public shout-out that I'm inaccessible, he's writing a lot of articles about stuff that you can use, or how to build stuff that is purely 100% accessible. But this is the extra mile, which you should do when the markup is solid, right? So my friend Carl from the United States once said that he believes that making things accessible should be required because it's just the right thing to do. And I started geeking out on that in the beginning, but now I'm more on that term, right? Information shouldn't be a privilege. But then there are also stronger opinions, especially when you're a front-end developer. It's not about doing favors for people. It's doing the job, right? We're paid to build products that work for everybody. And interestingly enough, governments agree with that. In the US, there were 250 lawsuits against companies, mostly in retail, financial service, and hospitality, because their websites were inaccessible and customer couldn't get the cheapest product. This is maybe something you want to consider. And also, all sites of EU governments have to be compliant with accessibility standards. And also, fun fact, Austria enforces this standard AA since December 2016. That's not so far away, right? And when you're working for an e-commerce business and you got this kind of lawsuit coming up, well, I don't know if the boss is happy about that. There are a lot of documents out there that will help you just to make the stuff a little bit more accessible. And for me personally, at the end, it's not only about conversion. It's about building good products. And I want to be responsible for good products. And good products will be used by people. And this is what I personally want to think about. I want to build the best product. I want it to be used by as many people as possible. And I want it to be exclusive, because depending on what I'm building, an accessible internet can make a whole world of a difference for them. And I'm done.